Okay, we are now 9 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order for the 29th of the 4th, 2022 for the 10th Parliamentary District Council. And today the meeting continues for the hearings on the proposed Tairua Skatepark location. So that's what the hearings are about today. And just welcome everybody with us today. We have a number of the panel are online, so welcome to Terry and Tony Murray, Deputy Mayor Murray McLean, also online. So
I'm online, yeah.
Good to see you there, but now you can mute your visuals.
Well, it was freezing on video, so I'm just going to be on sound.
Yes, yeah, no, it makes a difference to mute your visuals. It does make it improve the quality. So thank you to all. And so I just need to do the apologies, and we have one apology from Gary Gottlieb. Move Sally, seconded Robin. All those in favour, please say aye. 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 Against, carried. Any conflicts of interest? There being none, then we'll move straight into the hearings process. And I'd like to acknowledge Eden Houlihan as the first submitter.
Eden isn't here, but we do have John, who is via Microsoft Teams.
Okay, so we're moving on to John Fanshawe until Eden arrives. And John, are you ready to present? If you'd like to unmute your microphone and you can.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Right. Did you want to put your visuals on, John?
So I'm a bit hard of hearing.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Is it on?
Do you want to put on your camera? Click camera.
Yeah, I'm clicking the camera or whatever.
If you don't want to, you're just welcome to present.
I think it's a malfunction here.
No, that's all right. We can hear you. So if you'd like to just do your presentation, that would be great.
Yep. Well, anyway, there we go. Do your presentation, Johnny.
Yeah. Well, good morning. I'm John Fanshawe. I live at 18 Hornsey Road, Tairua, close by the north corner of Corey Park Domain, overlooking and aware of the community activity there. I've lived here permanently for 16 years, during which time there have been 2 of the previous hearings about a skate park on the domain, where I have spoken against the suitability of it thereof. I'm not against a skate park area in Tairua. I have a family who would dearly love a good skate area in Tairua, but I continue to hold a firm view that this is not a suitable location for such a facility to be imposed on the surrounding residential neighbourhood. I've been a member of Preserve Corey Park Domain since the outset and support their submission of 8th of April 2022 to this process. I personally found some of the conclusions arrived at by Veros from the survey responses very questionable. The original community survey showed a strong preference for siting the skate park on the Pepe as 67% to 33% for Corey Park. The weighting of the survey results seemed completely unfair, and for me it appeared that there was already a bias towards preference for Corey Park Domain. This was illustrated in 1, the way the community preference comments were dismissed as not significant, being ones of perception. No consideration given to the views of those who will be most affected. 2, the double points allocated to the Manu Whenua preference stood out to us immediately and obviously affected the points totally out of all proportion. I think the summing up of this is well handled in paragraphs 33 to 36 of the Preserve Quarry Park Domain submission. 3. The distance measured from the town centre is a complete red herring. The Pepe site is pretty much an extension of the town area, with the nearest shop and toilets closer than 100 metres. From the beginning, our concern as neighbours has been the well-known behaviour issue at and near skate parks, often after daylight. The report states that there will be better surveillance by the surrounding properties near Quarry Park Domain, ignoring the high possibility of unpleasant retaliation that can result following the reporting of an issue. This has already occurred in Tairua. At the time of previous hearings, both a commissioner and a resident police officer felt it would be unfair to rely on nearby residents for behaviour surveillance. The police constable favoured the Pepe location, where there would be regular police patrols and the public passing by. The late suggestion of sound barriers on 3 sides will make an enclave, creating not only a sound shell, but a real hangout spot. Despite drawings of the placement on the field, it is obvious that there is just not enough room, and there will be real safety issues with the overlap of sporting codes using the area. The committee of the Rugby and Sports Club have expressed their concerns at the imposition of the proposed raised skate area on the space. We are very familiar with this area and agree that the safety issues are real and must be taken into account. In our not infrequent heavy downpours, the extra runoff from a large expanse of concrete will run back onto Hornsey Road, challenging the low drainage system of the park and the road. Ross Ashby's assessment of options presented to TCDC, dated May the 4th, 2020, concluded that the Pepe Reserve was the ideal site, but 2 neighbours objected. No such consideration was given to the 29 or so neighbours of Quarry Park Domain. The big loss so far has been for all our Mokopuna, who have been deprived of a skate park. My hope remains that we can work together to achieve a worthwhile skate area for Tairua in the ideal site at Pepe Reserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Can I just ask, are you on the Rugby Club committee?
Was that?
Can you repeat? We can't hear you very clearly.
Are you on the Rugby Club committee?
No, I'm not a member of the rugby club.
Okay, thank you. Tony Fox has a councillor has a question for you. Tony.
My question to Mr. Fanshawe is in relation to your comment on behaviour around skate parks, and are you able to provide any evidence to support that statement?
Yes.
And then I'd ask a further question, so I might do it 2 at once. And so would the behaviour that you refer to be any different if the skate park was at another location?
Yes, I think if it was in the park, in the Pepe Reserve, it would be far better policed by the public at large passing by. And as the police constable said, it would also be better observed by the police, constant patrols driving along the road.
Thank you. Any other questions from the panel? There being none, appreciate that. Thank you very much, John. Oh,
Thank-
you know, that's, there are no further questions. So thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you. Is Eden available now? Eden is still not available, so we'll go to Rowena. Rowena, would you like to present this? Page 344.
Before I get started, I just want to give you guys one of these. This is a sample from some of the submissions that came across my desk. Of the 700 submissions that came across my desk. This is an example of about 450. We only had one no and one neutral with this sample of submissions, and all the submissions there are from Tairua addresses. They're not from visitors, they're from Tairua addresses. So I'm ready.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning. First of all, I commend Council on engaging Veros to undertake a process of community consultation on the preferred location for the skate park in Tairua. Protect Corey Park Domain Society lawyers have made it clear to everyone that they intend to challenge in court if a skate park is processed on the Corey Park Domain. The report has independently identified Corey Park Domain as the preferred site to give Council certainty that they are meeting their obligations to consult under the Local Government Act and also the Thames Coromandel Significance and Engagement Policy. I've personally been involved in 3 different skate park lobby groups over my time, and each has raised money for the skate park. Skate Tairua, the Tairua Youth Forum, and most recently the Tairua Sports and Recreation Trust. But before I came on the scene, there were a lot of other groups, a lot of other community board members and councillors who tried to get this over the line for the community. And back in 1998, Tina Larson led the drive. She was on the Tairua Pawanui Community Board for the skate park. Now, in her time, there was $40,000 that had been set aside, hard fought for and earmarked for the skate park on Corey Park Domain. And after the resource consent application was declined there, the $40,000 was reallocated and literally disappeared from the coffers. The next group, the Tairua Youth Forum, incorporated in 2006 and continued to lobby for a skate park for the following 7 years. In approximately 2007, 2008, I'm not exact, but the Protect Corey Park Domain Society lawyers reared their heads and Council bowed down to their threats, and we were advised by then Mayor Glenn Lynch that Corey Park Domain was unlikely to be successful as a location for the skate park in Tairua. Later, Council rewrote their bylaws, and skateboarding now was freshly considered a permitted activity on an actively zoned sports and recreation area like Corey Park Domain. In 2010, another resource consent application for a skate park at Corey Park Domain was made. There were 409 submissions, with 89% in favour and 11% against, and a strong majority of the respondents voted for Corey Park Domain as the preferred location, because it always has been the preferred location. But the scheduled date for the hearing was delayed pending further investigation into alternative sites after warnings and threats that the Society would take this fight all the way to the Environment Court. Society lawyers strong-armed Council to force us, the Tairua Youth Zone, to agree to remove the skateboarding component from the plan We folded, we were tired, we were exhausted. And we just wanted to give the kids something. So we folded. And we were criticised for that by many people advocating for a skate park. But by eliminating the option or taking the option for the skateboarding component out of that plan, meant we eliminated the need to obtain resource consent. And in early 2013, the watered down version of the Tairua Youth Zone was built on the Corey Park domain. The $20,000 that we had jointly raised with Skate Tairua for the skate park went toward the cost of the exercise equipment that is currently in situ at the Corey Park domain. Now, it's predominantly been mothers of children who want to skate who have petitioned and lobbied for a skate park for the Tairua community. And like hamsters on a wheel, we have followed the process to the letter, petitioning our resident and ratepayer representatives, our community board members and our TCDC councillors to progress the skate park on the Corey Park domain. But against us have been the NIMBYs and their lawyers whose well-heeled clients don't want a skate park, even though the properties that they own are sited next door to Tairua's only actively zoned recreation area. Against us also has been the process itself and its inherent loopholes and gaps and conflicts of interest and effect bylaws that society lawyers have pounced on and used to base their case on. But mostly, we've been up against old boys networks of white, moneyed males displaying their might. They have offered bribes, they have demanded and received preferential treatment and behind closed door consultation with many of our elected representatives. We are put up.
Just a point of order, Rowena. Look, I'm just concerned that you're criticising groups of people and they're not here to defend themselves. And this is about a hearing on the proposed location. It's not a forum where you can castigate other groups of people. And I take objection to that. So if you can try and keep your attacks on others out of your dialogue and restrict it to the sort of the integrity of the substance of your submission, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Sandra. The reason that I'm here today is I've been involved in the push for a skate park for 20 years, and I'm wanting to share with you the struggles that we have fought for groups of mothers for 20 years. And this is what we've been against. It has been a rough road, and not just a rough road for us, for the people like yourselves, the representatives who have tried to get this over the line. Now, before I close, I want to remind you all that today, as Sandra has said, this is about the location for the skate park at Corey Park domain, and we all know that. Today is not about the semantics of health and safety. It's not about the rugby club and the dead ball line. It's not about mitigation measures, nor is it about the final design of the skate park. This is about the community saying, what is the preferred location? And they have spoken loudly with 93% of the submissions that you have received favouring Corey Park domain. Lastly, the current active lobby group, the Tairua Sport and Recreation Trust, was asked by council to raise $150,000 as the community contribution toward this skate park at Corey Park domain. And we achieved this in 6 weeks. We're ready to roll. We believe that the Veros report is the concrete evidence that we need to show not only is Corey Park the preferred location, but council has gone through a thorough consultation procedure so that everybody can be on the same page. And I'm here today to say and to ask you, please, your job is to vote on the Veros statement of proposal. And I ask you to do that for the the community of Tairua. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Rowena?
Yes, I do.
Fine.
So we've heard, sorry, take that off so you can hear me better. We've heard repeatedly about bad behaviour, well-known bad behaviour issues after dark. As the mother of somebody who skates, who goes to other parks in other parts of the country and other parts of our peninsula, do you see bad behaviour at the skate parks?
No.
Can you elaborate on any of the behaviour that you do see?
I can. Most of any problems that are caused in Tairua, from my experience, are they happen after dark. Most of them really involve adults, not children, and it's typically adults who have been drinking. Most of the time in Tairua, any inappropriate behaviour happens at the holiday periods. It's not our Tairua youth. My child who's 20, I started this when I was 2 years old for my stepson who was 9 at the time, who loved to skate. I've never, ever seen, the kids in Tairua are great. Our kids are in bed. They're in bed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? There's none from the online, is there? Okay. There are being no other questions. Thank you, Rowena.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We now invite, so Eden's still not with us, so we invite Murray Mcdonald. Are you ready to give your submission, please? He's online.
I am.
Well done,
I
Murray.
am. Right, kia ora. Murray McDonald aho. I'm going to start with saying how bloody sad this is for me. I find it incredible. I live in a town that's divided over an issue, one side clearly against the other. It's unpleasant, it's destructive, and it appears to bring a lot of core nastiness to the surface, which is affected by deeper involvement with the town. Who want to be part of the bickering groups that are surfaced? The real issue of catering for active sports has been shunted aside with threats, unpleasantness, and money. Real or imagined, who knows? I care because it's destroying my love of this place. I see it in the people I no longer have a beer with, no longer stop and chat to. It's gone, disappeared, and some bastards to blame. Corey Park Domain, donated years ago, approved for active sports, given for that purpose as the location that must be used. Why does the influence of money make the decision even come into question? No EV consultations needed, no changes in district plans are needed. It's the site for the skate park, and I believe that this has been crushed in the past by persons who choose to use tactics that are unethical as well as immoral. The might of the dollar against a small group of women has been the method of opposition for years. The oligarch methodology of the golden rule, whoever has the gold makes the rules. That's bloody evident. Next bit. Corey Park Domain is the best location for a skate park for youth, and younger citizens have been stalled for around 20 to 30 years by non-residents who just don't want one. That's evident. Big coin talks, threats, especially legal threats with endless supplies of lawyers, of sponsoring with intent, because if you're not with me, I'm not with you. I will not kowtow, never will, and I thought I was finishing my time in the town with independent and free-thinking people I call friends, and we shared many of the same thoughts. I even went to the rugby club AGM a couple of years ago with the intention of offering myself for nomination to the committee. I've been proactive within Waikato University Rugby Club Committee from 1972 until 2016. I was player, coach and administrator, and I've always had a passion for the game and its development. This wasn't to be in Tairua, as all the positions were already filled. To even consider the use of the Pepe area, iwi first, protracted and convoluted discussion, and then not just changing the foreshore, that's another huge biggie, not just rebuilding the services that are adjoined to the Pepe, like the sewage transport systems and the like, but the process for this will take several years. A cynic might think that that was a stalling process and that a lot of things would fade. The sports club will be dust before the issue ends in those cases, as well as the persons involved with it, pro or con, as time takes very few prisoners. All of these tactics, even the use of the Maris brothers, I wonder how proud they'd be to know that their club was used to lobby a drop. Let's put a microscope over them nationwide. I'm sure they would not be very happy with their members. Other oppositional tactics, which are immoral, business owners coercing their employees to put in a submission. What the hey? This, I don't know that personally. I've been told that and I've heard that it was aired in public. But if that's the case, that's disgusting. All these tactics make me sad. The town of Adore being reduced to a toy. It's a joy experience for many who don't even live here, yet they own the store with the batteries, it would seem. Now I hear rubbish like you need a hall for sound purposes. Naturally, all those believing this, they would have been to Whitianga and looked at that skate park, one of the newer in the area. It's virtually silent. The technology of concrete as well as skateboard running gear has evolved, unlike ridiculous comments which are entrenched, it appears, in old men's belief systems. There's a place for a skate park. It's Corey Park Domain, fit for purpose, and a cynic might think and hope in a better way that in the future it could develop into an amazing combined sports facility. Soccer, hockey, cricket, skating, multi-sports, twilight fun sports, even a pump track. Kia ora, ka kite anō.
Thank you, Murray. Are there any questions of Murray? There being none, Murray, thank you for your submission. We now
All
move
right.
on.
Thank you.
We now move on to Vivian Corey Wright. Vivian, are you available to give your submission?
Yes, I am, Mayor Gowdy.
Then the floor is yours.
Thank you. Kia ora, ko Vivian Corrata Aho, ko Pāku Timanga, ko Tairua Te Awa, ko Tamata Kapua Te Puti Puna Whare, ko Te Arawa Te Waka, ko Ngāti Orangi Wewehi Te Hapu, ko Ngāti Whakawi Te Iwi. As you all know, skating is an Olympic sport. Corey Park Domain is zoned for skating, and those who brought their properties around Corey Park need to be reminded Corey Park Domain is zoned active recreation, and as the sports hub of our town, skating is a permitted activity at Corey Park Domain. The Tairua Sports and Recreation Trust. We are 5 mums fighting for our tamariki to have the dream of a skate park fulfilled. We have been bullied by the old boys networks and have had to become mother bears to protect our cubs. While trying to keep the emphasis on the needs of our tamariki, it is hugely unfortunate that we find ourselves fighting the anti-skate park few of the Protect Corey Park Domain Society and their propaganda, but also having to defend ourselves and our children against the Tairua Rugby and Sports Club. A few recent blow-ins to the committee have taken it upon themselves to spread misinformation on social media pages and through their newsletters about the proposed skate park. They are clearly anti-skate park on Corey Park Domain. Corey Park has security from 3 sides without even getting out of your car. The Tairua Youth Zone. Do you know where it is and what it is? It is the bittersweet compromise by the last skate park steering group who were stopped by the Protect Corey Park Domain Society, a small group with money about 17 years ago. The youth zone is all the old exercise equipment between the rugby field and the tennis courts on Corey Park Domain. It was paid for by the last steering group, and they weren't backed up by TCDC. It's a skate park without any skateable area at all. It is the footprint of the current proposed skate park on Corey Park Domain. And if someone kicks a ball into the current youth zone, and what if someone kicks a ball into the tennis courts? Or what if someone kicks a ball into the netball area? What if someone kicks a ball into the skate park? I've had a rugby ball hit my car. There is a walking track around the golf course, and golfers use balls as well. When is this ball going to be kicked into the skate park? In the 80 minutes of play a fortnight, with some training hours as well, a few months of the year? And why don't the rugby club have a senior team? Is it the culture of the club? A prominent senior rugby player of many years, Shane Johnson, recently said in response to the Tairua Rugby Club post on Facebook, "I feel they have lost their sight of the community spirit. It definitely shows when they haven't fielded a team for 2 years running now, or even actually tried. We used to recruit when we could, just to get a team year in and year out. Now nobody seems to care. It's really, really sad. Money and stopping the kids having a skate park seems to be the real focus these days. I'm not anti-rugby. We sponsor a jersey in the Premier Grade Waikato University Rugby, and I'm a social member of the Tairua Rugby Club. Some anti-skate park submitters claim there are no toilets on Corey Park Domain. There are council toilets located in the old St John's block, where the gym now is. These toilets are over 35 years old. Perhaps TCDC could provide better signage for short-sighted. These toilets are where the tennis, cricket and youth zone people go for relief. They are nearly 60 seconds away on a skate park down the footpath. Maybe too far for some adult tennis players who have been caught urinating in the drain next to the courts. Protect Corey Park Domain submitters claim a lack of consultation. There's been over 20 years of talk of a skate park at Corey Park Domain, and to claim no knowledge is beneath comment. If you've deliberately put your fingers in your ears, you can claim you haven't heard anything about it. This seems to be a Corey Park Domain, Protect Corey Park Domain Society tactic. Corey Park Domain Society claimed more community wanted the site at Pepe. I doubt it was the Tairua community. Maybe it was the Maris Brothers Rugby Club members and supporters that were enlisted to pervert a process that had nothing to do with them. This is another example of the foul play we have been up against. Both iwi, Ngāti Hei and Ngāti Maru, but more importantly, our local mana whenua oppose the skate park at the Pepe. So, we have seen for decades what Corey Park Domain looks like without a skate park. Let's now see what it looks like with one. It is certainly no longer acceptable for wealthy old men to use lawyers to get their own way. The outcome is not good for everyone. It is only good for the wealthy old men. This culture needs to change as it causes inequity, which is what we have here. These people need to be called out by their peers at their yacht clubs and the Millbrook estates and their fishing and boating clubs. I'm positive very few of these places would publicly back a small town basher and the tactics they use to get their own way. What are you afraid of? Some anti-skate park submitters say they don't want to lose the youth zone equipment. Well, maybe TCDC could shift what is still usable to the area between the tennis courts and the Manaia Road footpath, if this is going to keep more people happy. I'm sure if you find a change of heart, it would be good for your soul. You would probably sleep better at night, or you could just build a fence or plant a hedge on the roadside of your property instead of on the seaside. Kia ora, ngā mihi, Vivian.
Thank you, Vivian. Are there any questions of Vivian? There being none, thank you, Vivian. We'll call for the next submitter. Eden's still no longer with us, still not with us. So therefore, do we want to move on to Tairua Rugby and Sports Club? Tairua Rugby and Sports Club. Please come to the captain. You can both sit up there.
Can we sit?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
You can go and join them if you want to.
That's all right. Good morning. Good morning, councillors, everyone. I'm Terry Kingham and this is Derek Rudd. We're both members of the Tairua Rugby and Sports Club Management Committee. And we're happy to be here this morning to give you some seed before, hopefully. You have got copies of our online submissions. I must admit we misunderstood and there was some information that I did not want to post online for obvious reasons. So there's a little bit of extra stuff here that I'm going to include and with your permission, I'll email you a copy of this at the conclusion of the meeting so that you can catch up on it. Yeah. thing. So it's basically what we have already submitted, but let's get into it. If you bear with me, I'm going to be a little bit like Jacinda and keep on talking, simply because we've got a lot to get through here, and I appreciate we've only got our 10 minutes allocation. I'd like to open the submission with regret that we're even here as the Tairua Rugby Club and the whole Tairua community. We're looking forward to a totally independent, non-biased analysis on the needs for the best location for a skate park in Tairua, taking heed of community wishes and concerns. This has not happened, and we've ended up with a very poor proposal full of error and innuendo, and a conclusion that is contrary to the express wishes of the community. The Tairua Rugby Club has been around for 130 years and played on the current field for 80 years. We believe our voice should be heard very clearly as we see ourselves as the custodian of Corey Park domain. The club has invested close to $200,000 on infrastructure at zero cost to the ratepayer over the last 5 years. And that includes installation of floodlights, building improvements, cricket nets, and everything else that goes with it. In addition to hosting sporting events on the domain, the club is well used for community facilities. We're based right on Corey Park domain. We host to local community events, as well as hosting visitors to our region. For instance, the camper van societies who park on the domain and use our facilities. Okay, and so a number of bullet points of our experience, observations and concerns about what's happened over the last consultation period. Number one, there was absolute failure to consult both the club and the community, done most clearly by the decision to shorten the rugby field in order for the skate park to be squashed into Corey Park domain. The consultants have confirmed that there was no consultation, and this is inexcusable given the brief we understood was a consultative approach in all respects. Furthermore, the site selection document is issued to the community around the beginning of December, which was the basis for the community deciding on the best location, gave absolutely no indication that the field would be shortened. The conclusion is that they were committed to a reduction in the rugby field length in order to make the skate park fit, and it appears that this fact has been deliberately withheld from both Tairua Rugby Club and the Tairua community. This has potentially seriously influenced the community feedback, which has supposedly been so integral to this process. The poor proposal justified the reduction in field length, stating erroneously that the field was non-compliant and quoting from references to football field specifications. Corey Park is a rugby field, so there's a page and a half of references on dimensions of fields which are totally irrelevant. It appears that they were more intent on creating volume in the proposal rather than substance. Corey Park was gifted to the community. Rugby has been played on the field in its current configuration for about 80 years, as per the council website, and it was gifted as a full-size rugby field for the enjoyment of rugby and other sports. It was gifted and established as a full-size field, so any reduction in the dimensions after all of this time is surely a breach of the spirit of that gift. We've not been playing on an oversized field for the last 80 years. Tairua Rugby Club had an initial meeting with Veros late October, after requesting to be heard that we had not been consulted at that date. At that meeting, it was discussed that the lack of consultation on the previous proposal to erect the skate park on the ground. Various issues were discussed, primarily around health and safety concerns for our members involved in the established sports of rugby, tennis and cricket. None of those issues have been addressed in the poor proposal we have before you, even to this date. We will discuss health and safety shortly. Following the meeting, it was concerned that Veros had supposedly got clarification of council's position on the resurfacing project on the tennis court area. We as the club have aspirations to resurface the tennis court area where we can introduce hockey and futsal to the community, which have never been played in the Eastern Seaboard to date. What that requires is a synthetic surface, which is slightly better than the general flexi pad. We had indicated to Veros that during the meeting the council had informed no resurfacing was happening while the skate park siting was underway. Quote from Veros: "We have spoken to council about this. Please see below council's official response on this. It would be great if you could pass this on to anyone who might also think that the resurfacing was at risk if the skate park went ahead on Corey Park Domain, to make sure everyone is aware of council's official position. This is the far and away contrary to their supposed listening consultative brief. Why they even tried to engineer a restatement of the TCDC position on the court resurfacing strongly suggested to Tairua Rugby Club that Veros was committed to Corey Park Domain and were keen to remove any perceived obstacles to such a decision. After the meeting, the club requested on 27 October, quote, "The project, we did not discuss this at the meeting, but we are able to provide the committee, or are you able to provide the committee with a scale drawing of precisely where the 700 square metre footprint resides at Corey Park in relation to the existing fixtures? We understand that this is a minimum requirement for a functional skate park, but as a major stakeholder, we have not been provided with any detail around that conceptually fits into the land available. We understand final site plans are in phase 2, but surely the basic footprint must have been clarified." Tairua Rugby Club had real concerns that, again, we were not being listened to and the available area would not accommodate the 700 square metre area. Despite the above requests and others, we were not informed of the planned siting of the skate park until it was in the public domain and published approximately 1 month later without consultation. After publication, Tairua Rugby Club requested on 30th November the clarification of why the planned siting did not include the New Zealand Rugby Football Union 5 metre perimeter, as we had discussed with Veros, and also our concern that the siting was very close to existing cricket facilities. Once the planned siting was published, we included an image in our regular newsletter to members explaining that we had sought clarification. It's fair to say that we use our newsletters to, we as management team are representatives of the club, we're not the club, so we endeavour at our best endeavour to keep our membership and supporters up to date with all this negotiation. It is fair to say we received a lot of feedback from members who were aghast that such a structure could be located so close to the rugby field. The publication of the image showing the skate park planned location right beside the perimeter of the rugby field was disingenuous, as Veros knew full well a 5 metre clear perimeter was required, and they have acknowledged that in writing to Tairua Rugby Club. This misleading image was in the public domain and the basis of the community input to this process right up till February. So December, January, February, where all the consultation was happening, when the final proposal was published. When the final proposal was published, that's when we found out that the proposal was to shorten the rugby field. No consultation for zilch. The poor quality of this proposal was also highlighted by the example of the Tairua School being shortlisted and included all surveys and feedback mechanisms. This was despite the fact that the consultation had been underway for a number of months, yet the very basic requirement of land availability had not been considered. The non-availability was communicated to Veros on 15 December, yet was never communicated to the Tairua community until the final proposal was submitted early February. It is incomprehensible that council is considering adopting this poor proposal, given the complete absence of any concept drawings of what the skate park will look like in situ. How can the best decision possibly be made as to the most appropriate site in Tairua, when the community has been denied this basic requirement in such a proposal? We have therefore read and interpreted the Veros proposal as best we could, and we have distributed images of what we think the skate park will look like, and that was included in our online submission. And I understand Mr. Jackson, who's presenting today, will also show you those same images. Likewise, the proposal is completely bereft of any cost estimates for the construction and ancillary works. The now 2 preferred sites are completely separate, with quite disparate construction cost implications. Where is the council consulting cost projections and justification? Or does council not consider cost as a material driver in this decision process? Any decision to spend large amounts of ratepayers' money should surely be subject to a comprehensive financial plan. Again, this proposal was found wanting. If the mock-up images are anything like realistic, then the point scoring rationale included in the proposal from Veros are now also totally false and misleading. The supposed points awarded to the likes of passive surveillance, clear line of sight, deterrence of antisocial behaviour may all have been valid when looking at a vacant land, but totally irrelevant in this proposal. The structure includes acoustic walls around it, which on the Manaia Road side will be close to 4 metres high, so that precludes any antisocial behaviour viewing, and a lot of that, the safety through surveillance that Veros talks about, is just nonsense when you're talking about the final proposal. The structure will certainly be non-compliant with the reserve management plan, which is under consideration now by council, and that includes clear line of sight and preserving landscapes, etc. The proposal also includes an assumption that it does not include a structure that would be defined as a building under the plan. Yet the same proposal recommends 4 metre walls bounding the skate park. This makes it also in contravention to the district plan. It is a building. It's more than 1.5 metres. We believe that flood mitigation means that the skate park will have to be built at least about 1.4 to 1.5 metres above ground level in order just to prevent flooding. Even given the absence of concept drawings and the fact that shortening the rugby field was withheld from the public during submission time, both of which, if fully disclosed, would undoubtedly have swayed many from voting for Corey Park, there was still 68% preference for PP reserved for the preferred site. How this overwhelming vote is being cast aside is beyond belief. Health and safety. This is by far and away our biggest concern with this proposal. This included our online submission, which we understand all councils are now familiar with. We cannot emphasise enough how important this is. As I mentioned before, in our very first meeting, October 26th with Veros, we brought up health and safety concerns that a concrete structure bounding a rugby field does not make any sense. The club is gravely concerned at the safety aspects of this proposal and have made this clear from our very first meeting with Veros. The fact that the plan is to have large concrete structure directly behind the rugby field, albeit with a mandated 5 metre perimeter, creates a very big risk for our players. Player safety for us is absolutely paramount. There is also potential for the club and its officers to be held accountable in the event of serious injury, given the field may be deemed a place of work under current legislation. Rugby, even in community rugby, is going more and more professional. So under WorkSafe guidelines, it becomes a place of work. We're hoping to, at some stage, host a Heartland Championship game with Thames Valley, who have expressed the wish to spread the game throughout the eastern seaboard, which would be marvellous. Everyone has seen sportsmen sliding into cardboard advertising hoardings on major sports fields, but we're talking a large concrete structure here. Our concerns have not been addressed at all in the final proposal as submitted to TCDC. In addition to the above scenario of rugby, skaters focused on their routines will be endangered through sports currently undertaken at Corey Park, including practice and match days. Growth in playing numbers. We haven't been able to field a senior rugby team at the moment, which has made some social media comment, but that's very much about the demographic of the team and the fact that there was vaccination issues going on where New Zealand Rugby had mandated that we must all be vaccinated.
You're now over time.
I beg your pardon. Okay, so if I can just, I have included references to rugby, cricket and football, all of which will have balls landing in the skate park area. The only occasion is when every shot at goal that goes to that end is going to land in the skate park area. Given that the skate park is going to be bounded by walls, the walls are going to exacerbate that problem because the balls are going to hit the wall and bounce in multiple directions, potentially claiming up multiple people in the skate park. We believe that should this proposal be consented, TCDC will have willingly and knowingly created health and safety issues for all users of the park. Council should be doing exactly the opposite in mitigating risks of injury to the public and possible litigation under the Health and Safety at Work Act. Councillors will need to be aware of their obligations as officers of the PCBU to eliminate or minimise risk and have all the appropriate reporting, compliance and investigative processes in place. We've all seen the issues of Pike River and Whakaari White Island and WorkSafe challenging up to 13 companies in White Island, none under this sort of legislation. We urge council to look beyond the volume of this proposal and instead focus on the critical issues in respect of the wishes of the community. Council should look seriously at the option of Pepia Reserve, where a much better skating solution can be engineered, and the multiple issues, including but not limited to the above, can all be set aside. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And now, we do questions. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, you have a lease with council for space?
We lease the buildings. We lease
Right.
the clubroom buildings and the tennis court buildings. We have no lease on the land itself.
And then the second question was in regard to club members. So they've all been aware of the club submission and supported the club submission?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
So I had a question as well, because I was just looking at the map that you provided as page 1 of your additional submission, and it looks like the skate park is sort of put directly on top of where the existing equipment is, which is what I understood.
Correct.
So have there already been issues with the balls going and hitting people using the equipment?
During match day, only match day, the ball, that area is generally roped off.
Okay.
But not during practice days or anything else. And to be honest, the people using that equipment are not so much focused on what's happening, and they're not trying to balance between on a skateboard or anything else like that. But no, there has not been any known instances of injury occurring.
Okay.
On those days, it's just always two officials on each side of the field.
Yeah.
And if the ball goes to kick a goal, those officials go around behind to make sure everything's okay.
And that won't work because there'll be too many kids in the skate park? I'm confused as to why that system won't continue to work if there's a different
There's
structure.
all the other times too, you know,
Yeah.
it's,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions, Martin?
Yeah, so was there just a question about the members being supportive of the submission? So was there like a survey of your members of the Rugby Sports Club done?
No, we have not done a survey. The club has always stated a neutral position on the club because we have members. We have not surveyed as such. The consensus has been everyone is for a skate park.
Yeah.
But the question now is Corey Park Domain the correct place for that skate park? We have not surveyed our membership directly, simply because up until the last 3 weeks, our membership has been non-existent because we had a change in constitution. So all our membership ceased to exist at the end of December.
Right.
So we're now looking to expand our membership. So we haven't had what you would call a financial member database that is suitable for such a survey, if you like. We, as the membership committee, have a weekly or at worst a bi-weekly newsletter to members, whereby we keep them up to date with all our goings on and whatever's happening in the club and where the management committee sits.
Any other questions? Nothing on the line. So there've been none. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation.
Yep.
Very much appreciated. Okay, so are we now taking Jim? Yep. Jim.
Yeah, that's okay. Charlie's going to sort that out.
This is not the time to suddenly be doing building repairs. Yeah.
We haven't started that noise under the.
I hope not anyway. Right, and look, shall I wait until?
Fish cups.
Charlie's been very proactive in addressing.
Well done,
But you might have been. Well done, thank you, Stella.
Okay, so we'll sort of go through this reasonably quickly. Tim Jackson by name. Our family has owned a property at 69 Mania Road in excess of 35 years. And during that time, we've watched our own children and our grandchildren, as well as our wider family, enjoy the benefit of Tairua. And I can certainly see the need for a skate park, but I believe Corey Park is not the right location for a number of reasons, which I'll outline in my submission. Over many years, and outside my commercial activities, I have worked to deliver community-based outcomes as a way to improve our society. And these projects I have promoted, it has always been based on delivering quality, affordable outcomes for the community, and I have personally never derived any commercial benefit from my involvement in these activities. Some 35 years ago, I started the design process for a marina at Bucktons Beach Yacht Club, which included a berth holder funded public ferry terminal, which was the start of a highly successful passenger service between Bucktons Beach and downtown Auckland. As chair of the Air Hunter Hunting Society, we were responsible for delivering the largest reclamation ever in New Zealand for its purpose, and the first not to environment award, which has received 7 awards for delivering a great environmental outcome. I'm currently working with Auckland Council regarding consenting of the first all-tide public wharf at Clark's Beach on Manukau Harbour, and I'm confident that will be delivered using private funding sources. During our 35+ years in Tairua, has been a lot of discussion about a skate park located there, and has never realised, which I find very disappointing. In an effort to resolve the Tairua skate park issue and deliver both a temporary and long-term skate park solution, I had a formal meeting with the Corey Park advocates. As Jackie Cage Brown's home on the main road in Tairua, were indicated that I had the ability to help deliver a quality skate park on the Pepe Reserve. As an interim measure, I could organise a temporary pop-up track and a half pipe, much like what Council Officer Ross Ashby had installed at Tipuru. And the package I was involved with included private funding of around 200,000. And during this period, I was involved with the skate park equipment supplier, and we were both very confident that a temporary facility could be supplied, installed, and fully operational at the Pepe within a 6-month window. Unfortunately, for reasons that I don't understand, the offer was totally refused by the Corey Park domain advocates. And when you read TCDC's officer Ross Ashby's email dated 15th November 2019, he makes a convincing case for the Pepe Reserve, where the following points are considered. For those ones there, okay? And you look at those, and that's just common sense, logical things, okay? And all the things we've discussed and you've heard before. So then the Veros report, come to that now. I have some serious concerns regarding the quality of the Veros report, statement of proposal recommendation dated January 2022, in that it does not provide any draft design details of the Corey Park skate park proposal, which I believe is a normal requirement of any proposal to ensure all parties, including elected TCD councillors, TCD officers and the community, can make quality informed decisions. And I've been involved in that project nearly hung, which is, I think, 28 million, and I was part of the working group, and those are normal things you got up to, okay? As a result of this missing information, it was me who sat down and prepared a series of sketches as how I interpret the various design requirements. And if I'm wrong, please tell me, okay? But I sought information from them and they refused to give it to me for reasons that it may not exist. So now we go to this one here. And I became aware that that blue line there is an acoustic wall, okay, or acoustic barrier. And what's it made of, the height, all those things become questionable, okay? And then there's another one down there that says a possible additional 14-metre setback from the road, okay? I guess that's to sort of sort out how they're going to manage the noise attenuation issue. We go to the next one now, please. So the only thing in their report was this design here, which has been around for a number of years, okay? And when you look at it, if you can sort of pick up here, that's a raised area there, that's sitting higher, that's sitting higher again. So this structure is actually up quite high off the existing ground level. That's the public footpath that currently goes through the fitness equipment area through there, and that appears to be lost. There's been no provision to replace that, okay? So then we have a situation where one can only interpret, and I don't know how a community is expected or officers to make decisions. Go to the next one, please. And yeah, so basically, you can read that there. That's how I would see it. So there's got to be a footpath down there to access either side. There will be the green sound attenuation wall, and various bits of equipment inside there. And then we have the 40-metre setback. There's no information in that document about how they're going to do that. Next one, thanks. Yeah. So I've heard a lot of stuff today about walls landing in the area. So basically, if you just go up a little bit, you'll see there's a, I've taken it from the Veros report, this here. Now, they make a lot of play on purakawa leaves and sand and dust getting on the skate bowl at heavy, okay? So that's one of the reasons they're declining it. However, in contrast, it's okay to put a skate park directly behind a goalpost. And, you know, there's the people skateboarding are not focusing on the rugby, they'll be focusing on standing up and not injuring themselves. So if you look at that, you're thinking that would seem to me to be in a total contradiction. We wonder if we're concerned about this, and over here we've got a potential issue. I have a background, I sit on a number of standards committees, and I have lots of electoral regulation, and I have a company that's all based on safety. And just knowing what these, well, he spoke about White Island, some other things that I'm aware of, and Havelock North, just would not be doing that, because that regulation is going to tighten up shortly, and you'll find there'll be more casualties in there. Next one, thank you. So that's a sort of a three-dimensional look at what it may look like. Now, I would like someone to say I'm wrong, and I'm happy to change it, okay? So we now got a retaining wall on the front here. We've got seats. They talk about in some of the documents, spectator seats for viewing the platform of rugby. I've yet to see a platform or tiered seating behind the goalpost. They're normally on at the halfway mark, okay? So we've had to show the heights there, and you're thinking, yeah, rather a really poor design situation, okay? Next one, thanks. So then that's looking from the 22-metre mark line, looking back towards the structures. So the top photo is as it is today, with the fitness equipment in there. And then you look down the lower one, that's what we're going to be doing. Yeah, again, from my personal commercial point of view, I'm really struggling with that. And yeah, I have some serious concerns. Next one, thanks. This, the public walkway I spoke about. So at the moment, we're going to seal off from the way it looks on the Veros documents between the tennis court wire mesh fence to the front of the goalpost there. It's going to be totally sealed off, but there's actually currently a public walkway through there. And should that be retained? Yes or no? There's no space on the other side because there's a drain through there. Can't do that. So that's a possibility, okay? Again, it makes that 700-metre achievement really, really difficult to try and achieve. So the next one, please. Sound attenuation walls. You know, what are you going to make this thing from? There's just some examples that some sound attenuation can be bland concrete. We do a lot of tooling for motorway sound attenuation barriers, so I do have some experience there. And you can make it something quite smart, but this is going to be a big structure, and it's going to be sitting on ground that is suspect, okay? So I think there's 600 cubes of material to remove and place into the skate park there. And there'll be some structural issues of actually supporting such a big wall. Next one, thanks.
Structural issues. Putting in the thing, what are you going to make it of?
So the next one here is.
I should have sent them my photograph.
Excuse me, whoever's online watching the hearings, could you please put your microphone on mute?
Okay, so that was back in 2012.
Okay, thank you.
2012, and there was flooding there. And of course, we talk about the water table, which is a problem. It's about 300 millimetres below the surface there. And this is just some of the things that happen throughout the year. And, you know, again, it tells you maybe about the substance underneath the ground there, is that? Next one, thank you. So in conclusion, as elected councillors, I believe you have required to make quality decisions on behalf of your wider community regarding the skate park at Tairua Park. And to make a quality decision, you must be able to review the final draft design drawings of the Tairua Park proposal. As for my position, they currently do not exist. In my many years being involved with community-based projects, draft design details are a prerequisite to ensure quality decisions are made, and Veros today has not provided this critical information, which I have sought from Veros on a number of occasions. Overall, the Veros report is not of the quality I would expect from DC councillors to make a 50-year plus decision on, and it contains many shortcomings as explained. Still stuck with thanks. My concern is that should the green light be given to the Corey Park option, I'm sure it will trigger another legal challenge that both TCV ratepayers, PC, Protect Corey Park Domain will be required to fund, and a skate park will never be delivered to Tairua. I think that's a reality, okay? All parties need to commence working together to deliver the best skate park on the Commonwealth Township located at the Pepe, a location which will provide a quality environment and avoid another 25 years of no Tairua skate park. I'm very concerned about the process, and we need to avoid cost overruns, which are currently to the detriment and enjoyment of the current or of the Tairua skateboard community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Right, we'll now invite any questions. Do I have any questions, Martin?
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to work out if you've got a project where there's multiple locations considered, would it be normal practice to at least have some sort of design work done at each of those locations, or is it more you would be picking a location first with a sort of a general?
You would say this is the design that I want.
Yeah.
This is the optimum design, and then you would place that design with variations to the various locations, okay, as to how it's going to work, okay? So if you look at the Pepe, I mean, I see some opportunities there.
Yeah.
Then you look at the Corey and you put the same 700 metres in there, and then you look at the constraints, okay? There should be a design done in terms of what this thing is going to look like, okay? And they're done already with one of them, okay? But there needs to be another one. They need to do it for basically the two sites, Corey and Kepi. Schools off the table, and effectively that gives the community a feel for what goes on. I mean, I've been involved in enough projects to know that that's where you start. You've got to do a lot to do with three-dimensional structures and things, and you can give the public that, they can say, well, that's rubbish, or that has got merit, okay? And that's what we should be doing. And that's what Vera should have done, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
Question for Mr. Jackson. There's been a number of references made to flooding and the water table. Are you aware of any efforts being made by the current tenants, the rugby club and other users, to raise the field and maybe their club rooms to mitigate that?
I'm not aware of that situation, no. But I know that TCDC is currently looking at the stop bank on Mania Road, because that is obviously a little bit low at the moment, and they're working out how to lift that. And so I have an involvement with that to a degree. And basically, because there's no appropriate curb and channeling from the main road and the older parts of Tairua down to Mania Road, that's why we get flooding, okay? And effectively, there is a much bigger question to sort out tucked away inside there, okay? Of how you avoid inundation of rugby. I'm told about 40 years ago, there was, before that stop bank was built, certain waves of breaking on the rugby field, okay? So we've now lifted the stop bank, which has essentially solved that, and now we're looking at lifting it again. But the prime cause of flooding is the lack of core infrastructure, curb and channeling in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jim, did you just, so when you said you have some involvement with that project, are you talking about the shoreline management project that we're running it? Okay. And so the Pepe, you don't have any concerns that were we to put more infrastructure on the Pepe Reserve, we would then not have it available as a defence, a coastal defence for?
No, you can do both. Right? Absolutely, you can do both, okay? I mean, if you look carefully at the survey mark, which would the main high water stream mark along there, and go and look at today, there's been an artificial reclamation take place naturally, I think, okay? And then if we're going to talk about the big picture of lifting the stop bank, it also would protect the township and a whole range of issues. And then you have the NZTA project coming on stream. Again, there's all opportunities that we should be exploring, okay? So to answer the question, I mean, I didn't think it only hung there, the largest reclamation ever, and I had pushback from certain parties. Today, it's won 7 awards, okay? So to say you can't do reclamations for appropriate purposes is not an issue, okay? I think the land at the moment that I'm talking about, the Pepe, is controlled by LINZ or the Crown, and TCDC will be the guardians of that land beyond that boundary point, okay? So in terms of designations we talk about, there is some grayness tucked away inside there, okay? Which can be solved.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? There be none. Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen's not in. Okay, so Eden is the question mark. So I'm thinking that we'll take a break.
Have we only got one?
One more for Drake. Okay, so we're going to for Drake. Welcome.
Yeah, Paddy, thank you, Your Worship.
Pardon?
Paddy, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah.
I quite like the Drake. I think it's nice. Right, so welcome and take it away.
Sorry, take it away, or are we having a break? Sorry.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, councillors, for listening. Look, just up front, the Society supports a skate park in Tairua. I really want to make that clear. You heard from one of our members, Mr. Fanshawe, this morning. The Society has members whose kids and grandkids will use a skate park. The question is, what's the right location? And we're trying to show through the submission that there is a better option than the one on the table at the moment. So I'll just go over. I hope you've had a chance to read the written submission. I'll hit the high points, okay? So scoring. The Veros report's almost been written like it's a science. It's actually not that complicated to go through the relevant criteria. But as a starting point, not all criteria are equally important. Community preference is critical, right? That's why you're here as elected members, to deliver projects and infrastructure to your community in accordance with their wishes and preferences. So not everything does have equal weight. Similarly, district plan compliance, yes, on the Pepe, you need to get a resource consent. We understand that. But you've got expert advice in the submission from Tatico, which shows us that a resource consent can be readily obtained. Now, I completely get that there's a lot of advocates for skate parks who want Corey Park because it's seen as the immediate option, right? I get that. It doesn't require a resource consent. But if a resource consent can be readily obtained at the Pepe, we should be looking at the better option, not the faster option. Item 3 of the speaking notes, inconsistent approaches to mitigation. So if we look at how Corey Park's been assessed, it's been assessed to reduce noise on the basis that there's an acoustic barrier. Inexplicably, an acoustic barrier hasn't been used for the noise assessment at the Pepe. And you can't have it both ways, right? Because if you have an acoustic barrier at Corey Park, you need to show that to people. You need to let people understand what the visual effects of that might be and what the SIPTED effects of that might be. Now, you've just had Jim Jackson show you what an acoustic barrier typically looks like. It's a thick concrete wall. And if we're honest, we know that skate parks tend to attract a bit of graffiti, right? So these are relevant visual effects that we need to be taking into account when we're comparing the two options that are before you, only one of which, unfortunately, is on the table right now. Point 4, mana whenua and community views. Of course, mana whenua views are really important, right? But they've been given twice the weight of wider community views, and that's really hard to understand. And what it's led to is that you get double points for mana whenua views and half points for wider community views. Item 5, distance from neighbours. Again, it's not that complicated. We've got Veros introducing a really complicated methodology whereby there are all these different radiuses, right? Anybody knows that with the Pepe, we've basically got 4 houses over the back on Manaia Road that we need to be concerned about. The AES report, the noise report that supported the Veros report, tries to bring in the Pacific Villas across the road, but basically there are far fewer residential neighbours at the Pepe than there are at Corey Park. And any number of radiuses doesn't really change that fundamental point. Moving on. Sorry, I'm just scrolling. So I'm on page 2 of the notes now, distance from town centre. Again, it's not that complicated. You've got all these radiuses, but first principles, Pepe Reserve is in the town centre. Corey Park's just out of the town centre. It's a good thing for a skate park to be in a town centre. Look at Whitianga, right? It's in the commercial centre. Why? Because there's people going by, right? It's where the police tend to be. It's where passers-by tend to be. It's a good thing. It's not that complicated. Safety and SIPTEC. Key part of the Veros report was they said, look, Corey Park's a great site because there's clear lines of sight. Yes, it's flat, but let's remember you need an acoustic barrier to get the noise levels down to something acceptable. What's acceptable? We know from the expert evidence that basic proxy for acceptable noise in a residential environment is 50 dB LEQ, right? In order to get the noise down to that, you need to have an acoustic barrier. Even with an acoustic barrier at Corey Park, you're going to have a number of properties who get more noise than that. But to get it down to 3 or 4, you need a 1.2 metre high acoustic fence, right? As soon as you do that, and bear in mind, it's not going to be 1.2 off ground level, it's going to be 1.2 off the skate park level. The skate park has to be raised. You're looking at a 4 metre high structure. You know, we've heard that we already have, unfortunately, people from the tennis courts urinating. You know, you create structures and you invite bad behaviour. It doesn't really matter who buy it. It doesn't really matter if it's the skate park people or the tennis court users. It's not really the point. You just create an environment where bad things can happen. Noise effects, right? Noise is critical, right? It gets back to the earlier point about all the criteria being weighted in the same way. On any skate park proposal around the country, noise is probably the key environmental effect that you're worried about. The Society has produced an expert report from John Stiles. I hope you've had the chance to read that. The key point that John Stiles makes is that there's a difference between noise levels and noise effects, right? And what the difference is what's the background environment. We all know that at the Pepe, the background is that you're sitting next to State Highway 25. There's traffic noise, there's general noise that you'd expect in a town centre. By contrast, at Corey Park, what's the background? It's a quiet residential street, right? So the noise levels from a skate park at the Pepe, at Corey Park, are going to be 15 decibels higher than the background level. That's really significant, right? And so when you're asking yourself, what's the noise effect? It's not just the number, it's how will that be experienced, right? How will that be experienced by residential neighbours? And I get back to my point. There's really only 4 properties that we need to worry about at the Pepe on Manaia Road, over whose back fence the Pepe Reserve is located. You've got so many more properties at play in Corey Park. Moving on, land availability. You've heard from the rugby club this morning. Veros downplays the effect of reducing the size of the rugby field. But look, there are costs to siting this at Corey Park, right? You lose the children's play equipment. We don't know where it's going. They say that's something that's going to be worked through, but we don't know where it's going to go. What you really need to be doing as elected members, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm telling you to suck eggs, is listen to your community. Don't hide behind World Rugby standards. Listen to the people who actually play the game in Tairua and what they're saying. Now, we've heard about the balls and the rugby balls and the cricket balls. Actually, the bigger issue from a safety concern is the sliding in the in goal, right? Jim showed you the photos. You're going to have that concrete barrier, right? And anybody who's played the game knows that if you're trying to score a try or save a try and you're sliding in the in goal on a wet ground, your focus is the ball, right? And you're not going to pull out just because there's a concrete barrier at the end of the in goal, right? So this is the issue. And it's those safety concerns that really, I mean, you've heard this outside this forum, but as councillors, these have to be front and centre for you. District plan compliance. Yep, we need a resource consent if we apply for a skate park at the Pepe Reserve. You've got the advice from Tataco that it can be readily obtained. Reserves Act compliance, we've touched on that. It's not correct that the rugby field will be a full size. Go back to the reserve management plan from 2014 for Corey Park. It talks about it being a full-size field. It's just crazy that Corey Park got almost the maximum score on Reserve Act compliance. Accessibility to amenities. This is really about the toilets, right? You've got great toilets at the Pepe. They're new, they're handy. On the other hand, you know, you've got that distance that is going to make it harder and, well, frankly, less likely that people who need to go to the toilet take the trip, right? And we already have people urinating at Corey Park. And look, it's not their fault, but we don't want to encourage that behaviour, right? Relevant criteria not considered. This is at 13. Visual effects, right? Extraordinary that visual effects haven't been taken into account. And safety, right? Those are paramount concerns for all of us, as we know, in this new environment. The rugby clubs talked about what being a PCBU means under current legislation. You would have heard that before. Procedural concerns. Look, I don't want to talk about that today. Your job, it's in the submission. Your job, right, is to decide between competing proposals, notwithstanding that only one of them is on the table now for you. So where to from here? Now we've heard from people this morning frustrated, clearly frustrated over the time it's taken to deliver a skate park in Tairua. It got declined resource consent in 2002. It needed a resource consent in 2010. That's why only the youth zone part went ahead, because the skate park part needed a resource consent and it wasn't part of the application. So my question is, how many times do you keep recycling a bad idea? So, yep, we've in the last 10 years changed the activity status at Corey Park so that it doesn't require a resource consent. But fundamentally, what hasn't changed is the question, is it the right place? Fundamentally, back in 2002, Commissioner Tregear said, this just isn't the right place. And you can do anything you like to the zoning, those basic parameters don't change. So, next point, third to last, you'll be pleased to know, it's really about short-term and long-term thinking, right? You know that you're working your way through a statutory process. You feel like you're close to the end of it. You can end that process by accepting the recommendation to adopt the proposal and site the skate park at Corey Park. Is that success? You've heard how this has divided the community, but once you've made that decision, that skate park is going to have to live in its community, right? It's going to have to live with neighbours who don't like it. It's also going to have to comply with the Resource Management Act on an ongoing basis. You'll know that all of us in the councils and everybody under the Resource Management Act has a duty to avoid unreasonable noise, right? And you can't have any comfort that you will meet that duty with a skate park that has those noise effects of the type that have been assessed both by AES and by John Stiles. So that's why I mentioned ongoing RMA compliance issues. So look, as elected members, your job is to listen to submissions and listen to evidence. You don't have to surrender this exercise to Veros, right? Veros have done their job. There are different views about how good or bad that's been. You know what the society thinks about the analysis. You know what the rugby club thinks about the analysis. The point is, you don't have to accept that analysis. You know your community. You've heard submissions from your community. It's for you to make judgments about what effects are and what community views are. And it's your job to listen to the evidence, even evidence that frankly you don't like, and that you're surprised about having come into this process. And finally, where do we want to go? Let's work with all the stakeholders. There's so much energy, you know, I mean, I don't live in Tairua, I accept that. I'm delivering this from Auckland, but I see so much energy in the room. You've got guys like Jim who've delivered projects for communities at scale with great outcomes. And what's staggering is that there's never been a chance to gather any momentum behind a skate park at the Pepe. And it's inexplicable. We keep flogging this idea, this what I'd call a dead horse, when there's a clear option, a clear alternative that just needs to be given a fighting chance. Now, as Jim said, what you'd normally do, right, is scope up the best option that you could do at the Pepe, the best option that you do at Corey Park, and then work out where to go. We've never done that for the Pepe. We've never given it a fighting chance so that people who want a skate park can see how good it could be, right? They can see how good it would be for a skate park at the Pepe Reserve, but they've never been given that chance. And it's really hard sitting here to understand why. So my plea to you, I guess, is just to sit back, reflect on what you've heard, work with the community, and have the courage to make a decision. Maybe it's not the immediate decision that you had in mind, but give Pepe Reserve a chance.
Thank you, Patty. Right, so we have a question from Tony Fox. Tony.
One of the issues we've been hearing is noise and how to mitigate. Are you aware of any actions that the rugby club have made to mitigate noise on game day? Now, I'm mindful that there hasn't been rugby in the last 2 years, but there certainly has been, and I'm a regular attender on that venue. And nighttime for training. Has anything done to get rid of that noise?
Look, I'm not councillor. I guess I'd say the focus for us is what the noise that the skate park will generate on one site versus the other. So look, I don't know, but I think really what I'd ask, elected members to focus on is how feasible is it for noise for a skate park at Corey Park to be reduced to an acceptable level, and you've got some expert evidence on that from John Stiles in our submission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Do you have any other questions, Tony? No. Terry, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so this is to Patty, really. This is just a few points of clarification, if I may, with you.
Sure.
If with reference to the paragraph 68A, page 1294 of your submission, are you aware that as well as meeting with the Tairua Sports and Recreation Trust in July 2021, TCDC elected members and staff also met with Protect Corey Park Domain Incorporated Society representatives on the 4th of August at Council Chambers and Thames to cover off the similar points for clarification purposes relating to process going forward?
Look, I understand there has been some meeting with members of the park. Look, I can't go into all the details. To be honest, what I'm focused on in this submission is the merits of the two proposals. That's why I haven't really gone into all the procedural points, because ultimately what I'm asking the elected members to consider is the merits of the two viable options. Well, only one's viable, but the two competing options.
Do you
Okay,
have another question?
yes, I do. I just want to clarify a couple other points of clarification. So in reference to paragraph 68B, page 1294, are you aware of the unnamed consultant you referred to as suggested by Sports Waikato, in fact, declined the opportunity to submit a proposal for consideration to be engaged in the project?
Look, Councillor, I'm not across all that detail. Look, some of the procedural concerns I have been advised on by members of the society, but I'm not across all those details. I'm sorry.
Well, I've got a couple more to just clarify the situation if I can. So with reference to paragraph 68C, page 1294, are you aware Mr. Capel also emailed Mr. Pat Galloway on the 30th of August to provide an update similar to the one referenced by the Tairua Sports and Recreational Trust, re-keeping in the loop, and which specifically said to Mr. Galloway, Pat, a quick update, assess the three proposals this week, have a preferred consultant, awaiting the agreement to be signed and unsuccessful ones to be informed. First comms from the consultant to be out within 2 weeks, which will detail their approach and process. Are you okay if I give your name and contact details for the contact for your group, so when they are ready to liaise directly with, it can be with you? Signed, Rex.
Look, I think the main point in this part of the submission, Councillor, is the impression created that there was some influence over the choice of consultants. But look, I'm not here primarily to talk about the procedural concerns today. They're recorded in the submission, and you can consider that, and you can disagree with that if that's your preference. I'm really here to talk about the merits of the two proposals and actually how to deliver a skate park for Tairua. And I think that there's a really good way of doing that at the Pepe.
Thank you, Patty, and that's what the process is about preference for location. Terry, did you have another question?
I did have a couple more, but I would think the point I'm trying to make is that it's very clear that clarification about consultation has happened, and there's some concerns about the points made in the submission. Can we have your next
question, please, Terry?
I think he's finished.
No, he said he had two more.
But he was going to.
Well, I will say them. I'm here to say them. So he's here to talk to those. I'd like to say them. So are you aware that Mr. Galloway replied to this email to two separate emails on the 16th of August 2021, stating he was happy to be a contact, and suggested also the chairman of the PCDP needs to be involved, and the other on the 17th of August 2021, stating, amongst other things, the society is looking forward to being involved and working constructively with the council and its chosen consultant to find out the most appropriate site for a skate park. So I just finished with the last one. Just excuse me, Patty, I'll carry on, finish this off. Sure. So with reference to paragraph 69, page 1295, you state it was inappropriate for Tairua Sports and Recreational Trust and advocates of the Koori Park Domain Skate Park site to be involved in the appointment of an independent consultant for the project at any level. For clarification and accuracy, are you aware that the Tairua Sports Recreational Trust and advocates of the Koori Park Domain Skate Park site were in fact not involved with the appointment of the independent consultant for the project, and the appointment was the responsibility of the TCDC General Manager, Strategy and Governance?
Look, I'm sure the responsibility for the appointment did rest with the council. I mean, I think we've said what our concerns are in that submission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Right, has that finished your questions, Terry?
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Martin.
Yes, I just had a question. So you raised that concern about the scoring issues, but am I correct in saying that there was public consultation on that scoring process near the start of this project?
Yeah, look, there was, Veros did go out and say, look, are all the criteria, how do you feel about the criteria? I guess my point, councillor, is, that, multi-criteria analysis is a tool. It's not the be all and end all. And it's a little bit, and I hate to use this phrase, but it's a little bit rubbish in, rubbish out, right? So you select criteria, then you've got to assess a proposal against those criteria, and you've got to make the right judgments, right? So, for example, in relation to noise, it's just inexplicable that you'd get Corey Park being scored better than the Pepe Reserve on noise. It's just really inexplicable that you'd get community views given so little weight. So yes, I take your point, councillor, that there was some consultation about the criteria. It's then how you apply it. And what I'm asking you as elected members to do is essentially what I'd say in any process, which is, yes, you receive advice from officers and experts, but you don't surrender your judgment, right? You don't say, look, I have to follow what I've been recommended, because you know your communities, and you've also had the advantage of hearing from a whole range of people, whether it's, members of the various interest groups in favour of the skate park, the rugby club, Mr. Fanshawe, the society. You've heard from all of those people, and their views are highly relevant, and you need to overlay those on top of the advice that you've received from Veros, which in many respects is quite questionable.
So I guess just a sort of a follow-up question. So you said before in your presentation, you're talking about listening to the community. And then you also said in answer to my previous question, you said community views being given so little weight.
Yeah.
However, knowing those scores when it went out to the community, and the submissions that we've had have been 92% in favour. So I'm just wondering how you balance up that listen to the community against a 92% submission process.
I think one thing that's really troubling, councillor, is that the community have been given, well, they haven't been given apples with apples, right? They've been given they've been given a Corey Park option that's presented to them as the way to get a skate park quickly. And they haven't really been given a Pepe Reserve option that's been scoped up in any meaningful way, and they've been told that it isn't really feasible in a whole lot of respects, not least of which is that it needs to go through a resource consent process. And I think that's really unfortunate, because I think if they'd been given a more balanced assessment of what the two alternatives were and their respective merits, I think a lot of that, I appreciate, the community is divided about this, but a lot of the support that you have, and I appreciate there's an element of speculation here, but I think a lot of the support that you have in favour of the Corey Park option might move, because people could see that actually there's a pretty good opportunity here at the Pepe Reserve that just hasn't been given a chance to fly.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? There being none. Thank you very much, Patty. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, members, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so there was only one outstanding submission that wasn't available to us today. That was Edwin Holohan. And so we're going to
We've got his written, yeah.
consider that cancelled, and that concludes the hearings for today. So therefore, I shall conclude the meeting. The meeting is now adjourned and closed.
This particular hearing.
This particular is now closed, and recording is this. Thank you. Thank you.